everyone, and welcome to Turing Dev Talks. This is Callie. I will be your host for the day, and I'm signing in from New York as an account executive here at Turing on our enterprise team. And on the panel today, we have a very special guest joining from Ukraine, Sergii. Sergii started his software journey in the year 2007, and it has been 14 years since then. In his early years, he worked on technologies like .NET, C#, and C++. He later transitioned to mobile development in 2011 and is now an expert in C++, native, and cross-platform mobile development. So today, he's here to talk about native and cross-platform mobile development, the differences between the two, and to share expert tips on the best app development frameworks to use in 2022. So let's get started. Hey, Sergii, first of all, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Kelly.
How's work treating you?
Yeah, hello, Kelly. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing quite good. Enjoying those last sunny November days in Ukraine. Actually, this year, we Ukrainians are quite lucky. We've got a lot of sunny days in autumn, which is not very typical for us. But yeah, this year, works good for us.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. You know, in New York, we're also heading into the winter holiday months. So it's soaking up the last couple of days of sun. How about the holidays in Ukraine? Or what kind of holidays are you guys celebrating this year or every year?
Basically, we celebrate the same as you guys do in the US, and also we have our own. So we start celebrating at December 25th, I believe, and we end at January 7th or 10th even.
Great. And how about work? How's work going with Turing?
Oh, the work is going fine. I'm enjoying the multinational team from all over the world.
Great. Awesome. Glad to hear that. So let's just dive in deep to the discussion for the day. So to start, can you tell our audience more about native and cross-platform app development? And more specifically, what, according to you, are the major differences between the two?
Sure. So when we talk about native development, we basically talk that we use a single set of tools and frameworks and instruments in order to deliver one application to one platform. It's like we use Swift to deliver iOS apps, and then we use Kotlin to deliver Android apps. So basically, when you want to have a product on both platforms, you need to hire two developers who need to synchronize between themselves. But there is another option, which is a cross-platform development. And this option allows you to hire only one developer, which will use a single set of tools in order to deliver one app, which then will be deployed to iOS and Android. And the main difference between them is when you use native tools, so you are always keeping the pace of real platform development. But when you're using cross-platform tools, you are mostly a bit behind real platform development, real platform features. And yeah, you need to be aware of this.
Got it. Interesting. So of the two, native versus cross-platform development, which do you prefer to work in?
I definitely prefer native development, basically native iOS development. But it doesn't mean that I don't do cross-platform development. I do, and I really like it, but I would say I'm 60 to 40 towards the native app development.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So since we're discussing both the native and cross-platform app development, can you also help our developers understand the cases when they should opt for one over the other? Or, again, in other words, when should they use native app development and when does cross-platform app development work best?
Yeah, and my advice would be rather not only for developers, but rather for business owners. And I would really recommend cross-platform development for startups who need to deliver the app fast and to deliver it to as many platforms as they may afford at a very limited time. And then they need to validate their business ideas. So this is where the cross-platform development really works for. But for big enterprise companies, I would still recommend to use a native development, since those guys usually have big budgets, big amount of time, and may afford themselves to hire bigger teams with bigger budgets. But again, native development looks like more expensive and fancy. So for big players, that should be native development.
Great. So while preparing for this interview, we actually gathered some research and found a survey suggesting that on the whole, roughly 1/3 of mobile developers use cross-platform technologies or frameworks, while the rest of mobile developers use native tools. I'm curious, why do you think that's the case?
My personal guess is the reason for this is like 1/3 of actual development is startups. So there are like new solutions, something which is written from the very scratch, and people need to get results as fast as they can and as many platforms as they can afford. Rather than 2/3 of remaining effort is spent on old products for big enterprise companies with a traditional development. And I would say that a lot of developers actually doing both, like native and cross-platform development. Then again, this is what I use.
Gotcha. So just in regards to, small businesses and startups versus large enterprise, let's say businesses, there's naturally going to be more people working at these larger enterprise businesses. They have more money. They're investing in native applications. So it kind of makes sense, is what I'm understanding.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. So in regards to native development, we've heard that native app development is potentially more secure and steady than cross-platform app development. How do you feel about this? And do you think this is true?
This is probably the point I would not agree with. So basically, during the development, I've never heard that some app has been cracked or hacked only because the cross-platform development tool was used. And basically, most of those crashes and bugs happen not because of problems within cross-platform tools, but rather because of human factors, because of developers. So basically, if you're doing mistakes during development, during design, there is not a single tool which can protect you from this. And basically, I would say that cross-platform development brings you the same amount of security and reliability that native development does. The only thing which does not provide it to you is like some features may be like very limited.
Gotcha. Okay. So in that case, what you're saying is even native apps can have glitches and hang time potentially.
Absolutely, and this is usually happens because of developers' mistake. This is a human factor.
Interesting. Okay, great insight. So now let us shift our focus, just the focus of the discussion, more so towards cross-platform app development. For instance, we know that Google Ads is built on Flutter. So my question is, do you think that Flutter will take over other app development platforms in the future?
I would say yes. That my personal opinion is that Flutter is actually becoming the main set of tools, of instruments for cross-platform development. And there are a couple of reasons for this. Reason number one, it is supported by Google. So this is a big name for community. And community has sort of maybe ensured that the big company stands behind it and they will invest into extension of functionality, into some support and things like this, rather than other open source tools. Like, what happens if something does not work? Who can you report to? Who will fix those bugs? So basically, this is the main reason why Flutter is so popular in developers community. And reason number two, the entry threshold is quite low. You can just go to flutter.dev, and there are a lot of documentation and videos screened by Google, so fancy and so fun to learn. Like I remember myself starting Flutter development, and it took me probably 1 or 2 days to actually dive in. It was so easy.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm actually not surprised that you say that. Having worked at Turing for about 2 years and working mainly with our clients, I think definitely on the more fast scaling startup side, we're seeing a huge increase in lots of engineers wanting to learn Flutter, lots more clients, looking for Flutter engineers. We also, again, just doing some research beforehand of this meeting, there is another survey that we came across that states Flutter is the most popular cross-platform mobile framework used by global developers today. And based on that survey, it says about 42% of software developers are using Flutter.
Yeah, I really believe in those numbers. And even some time ago, they have announced that now they support even web. So basically you create one app which works for iOS, Android, and even web. I did not try that yet, but this is what the announcement was.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And do you have any insight on React Native? I know that, a lot of companies, when it comes to cross-platform app development, are using React Native primarily, at least before Flutter came around. Any insight or, comparisons against the two?
I personally do not do any React Native development, but some of my friends actually do. And when I actually came to them and said, I need some tool to pick for cross-platform mobile development, what they said was like, do not go into React Native. This is a big pain. And again, I did not try this. This is my personal, even not my personal opinion. This is the opinion of people I trust. But yeah, this is what they are, just their reaction.
Great. So yeah, thanks for sharing your experience there and how you tapped the your network of other mobile engineers to kind of decide what path to go. That's great advice even. So now that we've talked a bit about both native app development and cross-platform app development, I definitely think our discussion would be incomplete without mentioning what the best app development frameworks are. So in your opinion, what would you say are the best frameworks that developers should learn going into 2022?
Yeah, I would say that Flutter is definitely worth looking at. So Flutter is not just a single word. It's like a big universe. It has its own development environment, its own language, then its own set of libraries for like networking, UI and UX, and then for encryption, for navigation, geolocation, and different things. So basically, this is really a good tool to take a look at.
Great, big Flutter fan.
I wouldn't say so, but in comparison with other cross-platform tools, I would say this is the best one.
Okay, is there any close second or a close runner-up to Flutter that you would suggest people learn?
No, I cannot recommend anything. That's not because they are bad. It's just because I didn't try.
Gotcha. Okay, so. Great to hear your opinion on that. I'm definitely sure this will give our developers a good idea of what they should learn in this coming year. So quick pause to give Turing a little plug. I would love to call upon all senior developers who are working or willing to work remotely with companies in the US. We have over 100 technologies that we have jobs in, including Flutter and React Native, iOS Swift, Android Kotlin. And if you're confident about your skill sets, head on over to turing.com/jobs and apply today. So, Serge, this has been a pretty amazing discussion, and I think it's time to bring our talk to a close. But before we let you go, can you give us any more advice on how developers can choose frameworks for app development?
Yeah, sure. Like for big enterprise companies, I would still recommend to use native development since those guys have bigger budgets and more time in their resources. But for startups, I would really recommend to start from Flutter, from cross-platform development. Then at some point you grow you up, you go to the market with apps on both iOS and Android, and then at some point when you validate your idea and you see that, okay, this product, this idea is worth growing, you get more money, more time, then I would really recommend to hire iOS developer who can catch up this development. And then you will have two apps. One is native iOS development, but it doesn't mean that you need to throw away what you have done for Flutter on Flutter. This one, the Flutter one, may simply become your Android app and may keep just going.
Super. Thank you. That was definitely helpful. Really appreciate your time, Serge, and for sharing such valuable advice. I hope our audience enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. And thanks again, Serge, for being part of our global community of extremely skilled developers and engineers. We hope that this video reaches the larger developer community and helps us give great opportunities to many, many more skilled developers from across the globe like yourself. So to everyone out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop us an email at support@turing.com and let us know in the comments below what you'd like to learn in the next video. Give us a big thumbs up if you liked this video, and please don't forget to subscribe to Turing.com. We will be back with many such Turing developer stories, but till then, stay safe and click on the link in the description below to apply to Turing.